the CIA. So we'll have some of those fun discussions as we go. But before we do that, guys, let's talk about Self-Reliance Festival. You were both there. You can hear that I was there because my voice still isn't all the way back. What'd you think? Start with Brian.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I was loading up the stream to my channels, and
okay, start with Sean.
Everything was covered.
And people in the live chat, if you have a question, just put the word question in all caps so that these eyes can see that you have one. Go.
Okay. SRF, what did I think? It was good. It was good. It was definitely different. We all kind of individually came up with that evaluation that it felt a little different in a good way. It felt like more people were in small groups, building small community, having direct discussions and figuring things out. Nicole, we talked about it in the live, and you had mentioned that you got no response when you asked what people were scared of. And I think that's a good thing. I think we're doing our jobs as people that participate in these festivals and do this stuff. I think we're doing our jobs if people aren't scared, and they're getting, they know they don't have to be scared because there's stuff they can do to mitigate that.
Yeah, that was a huge difference. In like we always have, like most people aren't. Most people have gotten over that hump. But a lot of people who come to preparedness, especially in the last 5 years or so, or maybe always, I don't even know, something has happened to make them aware that they're vulnerable. And it's very natural to feel vulnerable and then feel fear. And then they come to this festival because they can't find anybody else around them who realizes that shit isn't what we thought it was, right? So they come and they're terrified about their thing. And if you live in a space of fear, it's much harder to get a solution in place and start taking positive steps. And the decisions that you're likely to make are more grounded in you're making your problem worse. I know somebody who, when Obama was elected, decided that, the whole martial law thing that happens every time anybody doesn't like who's president, which is every president we have, somebody doesn't like them, and they're convinced they're going to declare martial law and the United States is going to cease to exist. Well, he thought it was going to melt down that way and turn into an economic mess. And so he sold everything he owned, including his house, and moved out into the woods into a rental property and stopped working or earning money, was spending his savings because he was pretty sure things were going to fall apart. And then at that point, it didn't, rentals didn't matter anymore. And 2 years later had no money and had to start completely over from scratch. So that's a decision made in fear. You want to make your decisions based on a long-term positive outcome that you're going for. That doesn't mean you don't want to be aware of the dangers along the way, but you definitely do want to think about the positive side and make solid decisions that work if things go wrong or if they don't. Or as Jack Spirko would say, right, if times get tough, or even if they don't. Sean, right. What were your thoughts on Self-Reliance Festival?
Yeah, I think, echoing what you guys said, I think that it was definitely a different atmosphere. There was a lot more camping, I think, than maybe we've had ever. There were a lot more people in that area this time. So that was neat to see, because that allows for more people after the event is over to continue those conversations and to continue to get to know each other and things like that. I definitely did not see or hear as much of the fear-based. It was a lot more opportunity-based conversations, like what can we do to do this, or how can we do that, or what would it look like if we took this opportunity and we all got together and did X, Y, and Z, and even on the vendor side, we had a cool well pump solution. We had some solar companies there. We had, vendors that were also kind of part of that same idea of take, control of some of the things, don't rely on these large infrastructure type things. And I think part of it probably had to do with the fact that we've got this devastation in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina that we're all very aware of. And so when things like that happen and you start seeing that really close to home. I mean, who thought that there would be more devastation in East Tennessee from a hurricane than from Florida where it made landfall, And I think people, when they're seeing those things happen, it almost changes the mindset to, okay, I should probably do something, and there's probably some small baby steps that I can take. What do those look like? And so there was a lot of conversation about that. I think that anyone that's selling IBC totes that are triple washed and food grade is going to have a good week this week. I think a lot of people are going to go out and start buying up some totes and hopefully start storing some water and things like that. So there was definitely, I loved it. I love all of the SRFs for different reasons. I moved around. I think I only actually watched one presentation, honestly, because I was moving around so much and having conversations. And you guys know me, I'm a super extrovert. So like, I'd much rather stand around and have a conversation with someone than sit and watch a presentation anyways. But yeah, no, I loved it. Tons of great feedback from the vendors, tons of great feedback from the sponsors, tons of great feedback from the attendees. So yeah, I thought it was really, really good.
Awesome. For me, having Spags there as the MC, and he wasn't just like introducing things, he set the schedule, he kept the schedule going, so I didn't have to worry about it. That opened me up to be able to get out and walk and actually see the vendors and spend money with the vendors and have those conversations. And so for me, it was a very different event in that way, that I was freed up to do what I've always wanted to do, which is be able to talk to everybody, get their feedback, learn what their problems are, because people are always, formerly they'd be going, Nicole, and I'd be like, I can't talk. Nicole, I can't talk. And of course, there's always some times when you're in the middle of troubleshooting something that happens that you can't talk. But the majority of the time I got to talk. Sandy came out from the East Tennessee Homesteaders Alliance. And
I didn't realize you guys had never actually met in person.
We'd never met in person. And so I got to meet her in person. And I'm hoping to get to her event next year. I have a feeling it's very close to our event next year. So that's going to be just a trick for me from a logistics standpoint. But even if I just go out for one day, I mean, as with Kiri, who's in the live stream right there, with Kiri on board, I know things will be under control with the setup and everything. So I probably can at least sneak out for one day of her event, even though it's a couple hours in the other direction from where the event is. So yeah, it was great to meet her and her husband, and they're doing some pretty awesome things as far as connecting people in East Tennessee. And I think the connecting people part that's why we heard story after story after story of SRF has changed my life. That's all I heard all weekend. Nicole, thank you so much for doing these. SRF has changed my life. And then they tell me why. So yeah. So when I wonder why I do this, that's why I do this.
Right.
Any other thoughts? Oh, Sean, so I know you're going to East Tennessee to help with some electricity solutions, right? You got donations at SRF of solar panels.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about what that's about.
Yeah. So talking with Bear Independent from Grindstone Ministries, who is on the ground, they have area of operations that they're covering to help with the recovery efforts in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. One of the things that they mentioned was, there's communities that won't have power for months. And then there's probably communities out there that won't have power for a year. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, okay, you've got areas. So you got to get the area cleaned up, right, before you can go in and kind of redo some of the infrastructure that was destroyed. He said, so, imagine, Main Street, downtown, whatever, all of the power poles are gone. Okay. And some of the transmission lines are down. Like, they can get trucks in there and get new poles in the ground and pull new wire and put new transformers in. That's something that the linemen are very, very good at. But if the bridge is washed out and the roads are destroyed and half of the roads are not capable of handling the weight of some of these big trucks, or whether they are or not, they don't know right now because they've got to be evaluated. There's roads there that'll have big white stripes on them. And essentially that's the engineer saying, hey, there's no subsoil underneath this part of the road. It hasn't collapsed yet, but don't drive a heavy vehicle over it. And so you can imagine this as part of this recovery effort, they literally have to rebuild some of the roads and bridges just to be able to get the trucks in to put the new poles in the ground and to pull the wire, et cetera. And so, that's months, maybe as many as 12 months out before some of these communities are going to get all that infrastructure rebuilt. And then you think about things like, okay, clean water, the ability to take a shower and clean yourself, keep a little bit of food preserved, things like that. What do we need for that? We need power. And so I said, well, I happen to have the ability to build small portable power banks that can be palletized and literally flown into an area on a helicopter. And we can color code all the connections. So you connect red to red and yellow to yellow and blue to blue and green to green, and you flip a switch and you have power. So I went over and I talked to actually one of the vendors that was at the event that is based here in Tennessee, and they refurbish solar panels. And they've got some solar panels there that aren't really part of what they normally do. They're a little bit odd, but they generate just fine. And I said, hey, obviously the first part we need is the generation. I've got to work on, the inverters and the batteries as well. But since you guys are here, what can you do to help out? And they said, tell you what, if you can come get them, we'll give you 100 solar panels. So that's, they're 317 watt panels. That's 31,000 watts of generation, which in Tennessee would be equivalent to about 1.2 megawatts per day that can be generated. Now we've got to get the rest of that infrastructure put together to harness that energy. But Ryan Steva, the Homestead consultant, was there, and he was showing some DC direct strategies where you don't use an inverter, you don't use a charge controller, you go straight from the panel to the load, whether that be a fan, a pump, whatever the case may be. And all you need to do that is like a $40 buck converter. And so you've got, you've got a lot of things that we can do now that we've got the generation side handled, right? 1.2 megawatts a day. That's significant. Now we just have to break that up into usable pieces. We need to get some buck converters. We need to get some pumps. We need to get some inverters. We need to get some batteries. We need to get some toolboxes to build all this stuff together. But imagine being in a community on top of a mountain with no roads coming in, no power, no water, no infrastructure, essentially. Most of those places are on septic, so they can still flush the toilet if they can get water to put in the back of it. So we could literally, with a helicopter, come in and drop in a power bank with a 5,000 watt hour battery and 1,200 watts of solar panels, and they can just lean the panels up against the toolbox and run extension cords to that thing and do a lot of work. So
is 5,000 watt hours what I have in the cabin?
Yes.
Yeah. Guys, that's running a whole house for me. With not even trying to be efficient running whole house. What I'm not doing with that is heating water for hot showers. I'm pumping water.
Right. Yeah. And, as morbid as it may sound, because all the trees have been blown off the side of the mountain, sunlight is readily available. So, we can do things like solar thermal as well. As we get into the winter, that's going to be another challenge. Like we're October right now. It was really abnormally warm for this weekend at SRF. But I think it got down to like 49 degrees at my house last night, so we're already, okay. Yeah. Red Flyer Media. Thanks for mentioning that. She says she might be able to help get some funding. Yeah, that'd be great. I think
I'll
what we're going to do
down so we don't forget
is put together a, kind of like an Amazon wish list where we can have the stuff shipped in. So essentially what I'm doing this week is getting stuff around the homestead settled so that I can leave my wife and kid that live here, by themselves for the next week or so. And then I'm heading out there. I'm going to just camp in my car and, take enough water and food for me for the whole time I'm going to be out there. And yeah, if we can get those supplies in, then we'll be pumping those things out and getting them where they're needed. And the other thing you think about is, so a lot of these people have wells, right? And now we don't necessarily want to pull water out of the wells that are in the valleys because that's where it was flooded. And, when you have chemical plants and cemeteries and food processing facilities and everything else getting flooded, you don't necessarily want to utilize that water that's at the bottom of the valleys. But everything up top is still clean and fresh. They just can't get the water out of the well. And so that's another thing we're looking at, is either converting some of those wells over to run direct from DC, or putting a manual pumping solution in, like that one vendor that we had at SRF. They said, yeah, reach out to us once you know what you need, and we're absolutely willing to help. Yeah, FlowJack.
Yeah, so the two companies you're talking about that have volunteered to just help out are Ontility and FlowJack, right?
Yep. Yeah. Ontility is donating the panels. FlowJack is, has said, hey, reach out to us once you know, because obviously their systems are specific to the depth. So we actually need to get on a well and see exactly what we need before we reach out to them. But their system works off literally a bicycle pump, and then also Signature Solar. So Signature Solar was there. They donated battery packs, like what people refer to as solar generators, even though they don't generate anything. They donated, I think, 6,000 watt hour Anchor Solix battery packs that are on the way to East Tennessee right now. They're already, he got on the phone, called the warehouse, said, put these on a pallet. Here's the address where they're going. And they might be there by now, honestly.
They probably are.
Yeah. So those are more like things that are going to get stuck in vehicles and taken out, and people can charge phones off of them and things like that, laptops and things like that. You can even run a Starlink for a couple hours off of one of those. But yeah, that's the other thing we talked about, is we build these power stations in a toolbox. We can put a Starlink in there. We can put radios in there with base stations. And now we've got communication to some of these places as well. So, it's amazing when you get a lot of people together that are interested in helping, how quickly things can. This was literally like, I went up there and I was talking to Bear, and I was like, hey, I'm not a go dig stuff out of mud guy, but what can I do to help? And it was like, I don't even think he realized I'm the Hack My Homestead guy. He was talking about something else and mentioned power. And I was like, well, that's something I can help out with. And literally within 24 hours, we've got battery packs going out there. We've got solar panels arranged. We've got a plan for what to do, how to get it to places. Like I said, we just need to get the rest of those components there.
Hey, Brian, when you hear all this, how long do you think it would take the government to put something like this together?
Got a couple years.
Yeah.
Every
solution that's working right now is decentralized, and it's literally somebody having a conversation, and all of a sudden they realize power is not going to come, so you got to make your own power, and now you're making a decentralized power grid out there.
Right.
Like, I wonder what how the rebuilding will go when people have figured out all their stuff already, and the utility companies are like, oh wait, now we're ready to put city water back in, or we're ready to run power lines.
Yeah.
Ian is in the house.
Well,
I got to meet Rachel in from an undisclosed warehouse in person. That was pretty cool.
I saw, or I said it on my show yesterday morning, like, who's going to build the roads? It's going to be the people that are there.
Yeah.
They're literally doing that right now, right?
The guys that lost their houses, but their equipment sitting out back still runs. So they're digging their house out, and then they're going to dig their neighbor's house out, and then they're going to fix the road, because they fix the road regardless. They're not sending road crews up there to maintain roads all the time. It's like Tim's Road. Who fixes it? The people that live on it that have to use it.
Right.
So this is going to sound crazy, but I don't care. The best thing that Tennessee and North Carolina could do right now to facilitate a rapid rebuilding that just gets done and gets people up and running and in shelters with water and the ability to start moving on is get rid of all of the codes in those areas. Like, you do not have to have inspections. You do not have to pull permits. You just go.
Yep.
Because the thing that happens next when rebuilding happens is, like, even in these cities where they're just gone now, there's a gajillion rules in some of those cities about how far your stairway has to be from, the door entry or whatever. I'm making that one up, but you know what I mean? And
minimum square foot
like,
requirement.
think about all of the permits they need to process. It's going to be tens of thousands in just one city because there's multiple permits per building job. If they would just state law, you can't do it for the next 5 years in these regions.
How about
Stuff to
forever?
build, and everybody's like, but then it won't be safe, Nicole.
Is it safe now?
Contractors don't go out and build unsafe structures because they want to stay in business and get more business. The crazy thing out there is that they said like less than 1% of the houses in this geography has flood insurance. So literally everyone, not literally, but 99+% of people who lost their houses due to this flooding are not going to be covered by insurance. So that's tragic, right? But let's say you lost everything, you've got a foundation and you've got utility infrastructure there that's left over and you want to rebuild. Now you've got to fight with, well, you've got to rebuild a minimum of a 2,200 square feet because the local ordinance says that no houses are allowed to be built under 2,200 square feet. And it's like, maybe we should just build a ranch on top of the existing foundation that's still there, that's still good. But we can only fit 1,200 square feet under roof if we do that. And like you said, Nicole, there's literally going to be codes enforcement people saying, nope, building permit denied because of this rule that we put in place to increase our property tax revenue. And it's like, well, the alternative is going to be nothing's going to get built there. How is that going to impact your property taxes?
Yeah, the other side of that coin is it's going to take them 6 months to even look at your permit, and then you'll be to this point in your project where you have to stop.
Yep.
It might be a year before they can get to it. This happened after Katrina.
Right.
This happened after Katrina, and nobody fixed it. And I'm like, literally, we're going into legislative session in January. The governor could call an emergency session and say, let's get this done in Tennessee. I'm not super versed in the North Carolina state legislature, but they could completely change, like overrule that. But then all of their, pocket filling lobbyists are going to be pissed off because it doesn't like specify that you have to use something that makes you use our stuff that we sell.
Yeah.
That's what you're up against.
Yeah, that's a great point, Nicole. I wonder, it would probably be worth it to try to find someone who dealt with that after Katrina and get them in front of the state legislature and try to get some momentum going. Because that's something that, all these state legislatures that live in their massive McMansions don't understand. Some of it is, some of it is a lack of empathy, but a lot of it is just ignorance, And so hopefully you can increase the empathy to the level where they're willing to at least hear what's going on and, solutions to fix it, solutions to make it easier to fix.
Brian, I'm giving you a pause because we keep interrupting you. So you get to say what you think.
Oh, I don't know. They could just remove them for forever and it would be a benefit to everybody.
Yeah. Everyone but government. And that's the problem. Government doesn't want to relinquish their power. They might suspend it for a little while, to maintain the tax base. But yeah, they're not going to get rid of it forever.
They say they need the permit fees to get the infrastructure in to support the growth. And I have a friend who did a research paper, because I have research paper friends, years ago on if you just required the developers to put in the sewage and whatever for what they were building, that it would naturally control growth where people really needed it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it would pay for the infrastructure.
Yeah, imagine that the market works when you take the regulations out.
Yeah, so I mean, these are things as we've had this conversation, I realize I have a couple people to reach out to from my public policy days to see what's already. I'm sure they're already thinking about it,
right?
Because I got, this is not a new idea I've just had. I got it from all the people who were like, why do we have these in the way for Katrina? So
Right.
it's not a new idea. It's just hard to pass because people legitimately think that the inspections keep houses from being built that can be dangerous. And then you see all of these like cheaply, crappily built homes that pass inspections that have, mold or whatever happen. So
I completely re-roofed a 3,700 square foot house in Alabama 16 months after my inspection there, where he didn't mention a dang thing about the roof. Guess what? You got 12 months to file a claim if they missed something on the inspection. But it was 16 months before water started falling into my living room. And I had a roofer up there and he was like, oh, yeah, this roof should have been replaced 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
Inspections are there there are good inspectors. I'm not going to say that, but inspections are there to check a box. Okay. And that box gets checked on good houses and it gets checked on bad houses.
And the fee gets paid.
Yeah.
The all important fee gets paid. Yep. Okay. So as we've seen the information coming out of Eastern Tennessee and North Carolina, I have been so frustrated by the lack of actual reporting on this. I can't remember what the headline was yesterday. I read some headline yesterday that had nothing to do with thousands of people dead or whole towns wiped out, or, helicopters flying down and destroying supplies that the Cajun Navy's giving out or anything that's going on out there. It was some other dumb this is what conspiracy theorists posit, that the lithium deposits in that area is why the storm hit there.
Silicone.
That's what they're reporting on.
Is it the silicone or lithium?
It was the lithium on this particular headline. And then, the second part was that it was geoengineered to hit hard there. So that's the reporting we're getting from mainstream media, which isn't focused at all on the thing that's important, which is what's happening there right now and how do we solve the problem. And the reason that is they have centralized control of that communication channel. So today I did promise we would be talking about taking control of your social media, because you go out on Facebook and the same thing. I'm seeing some posts there, but I'm not seeing a lot. And I'm in the networks where I should be seeing a lot. And then I'll find something from 5 days ago. So clearly the algorithms are not really aware of what I want to see. And it's all about me, of course. So let's talk about that. We still, population. Go ahead.
As you said, the other side of the algorithm is they don't care whether you get good information or not. They care that you get something you're going to interact with, which means the crazy nonsense that we know is not true. Like they found 2,000 people in a church that hadn't had food, water for 6 days, and were using pack meals to get stuff up there, that, which is completely and totally false. It was someone that took an actual thing that happened, edited the post, and then put their Venmo link, donate here, underneath it. So it's 100% a money grab. I saw that like 8 times in my feed. Why? Because people are interacting with that. I never saw the original one, and I'm not seeing the other things that, like you said, are what's actually going on there. We're seeing the things that keep you on their platform. That's all they care about. They do not care about you getting good information. They, sometimes they care when the government tells them they're supposed to care about getting rid of misinformation. But you see all the misinformation that's happening right now, and it shows you they do not care about that. All they care about is keeping you on their platform. So I digress, back to taking control of your social media.
Brian, how do we do that?
Figure out how to use Noster.
So is that hard?
Depends on how deep you want to go into it, but on the base level, no. I got a video that shows you how to sign up in I think it's under a 5-minute video, so under 5 minutes. But it's a place where there is no algorithm. There's no feed. Your feed is built by you. You choose what you want to see and what you don't want to see, and that comes with great power because you're going to see a lot of shit you don't want to see. If you can't figure out how to ignore it or block it or not follow it, we've been trained to just hit report or shit like that. There's no reporting. There's like, don't look at it. That's right. Kind of where it is. So it's a breath of fresh air, but you have to be ready for what you're getting into. It's not Facebook. They're not going to spoon feed you. Well, in my experience, Facebook spoon feeds you shit that irritates you, so you get pissed off and you get mad, and then you go and write a comment and fight with people. It's a breath of fresh air going to Nostr and seeing the things I choose to see, and people that are being positive and building things and discussing solutions. Yeah.
So the reason I wanted to talk about Nostr is people keep asking for an alternative social media where we don't get censored, an alternative social media where it's not just going to get turned off by the government, an alternative social media where insert X here, right? Because the frustrating thing is you put all your time into building something on a Facebook or an Instagram, and then you post the one thing they don't like and you get put in jail for a week and can't access it, which also means you can't access any messages you had about business or any of your family, because it's those things have become communication tools. And what caught my, and we've seen a lot of like Rumble and a whole bunch of other people trying to solve this problem. But the brilliant thing about Nostr is how it's structured. So it's not a Facebook and it's not an Instagram. It's a protocol. Can you talk to us about that a little bit, Brian? Like why that matters, what that is? Like find some metaphors for people who don't, when they hear me say protocol, just like we're like, maybe I should stop listening to this conversation now.
Okay, so it's set up kind of like, so protocol is email. It's a way that things are structured so everybody can interact together. It's a set of rules for people that are making programs that you're going to use to access the information, different services you're going to use. So we can send our email. I can send it from Gmail to Sean's private email to Nicole's Hotmail to whatever. And we can all receive that message and read it. So it's just the language it needs to be written in. So the way Nostr works is anybody's free to make their own client is the word for it. Basically, the app you're going to use to view the information on Nostr. And they use a specific set of rules to interact with the information that's there, and you go to the app and you open it up and you can see the messages, but you can choose what app you want to use. Just like your email, you can choose, like if you're familiar with self-hosted email, like on your website, there's a million different apps you can download on your phone to plug it in the information, and then your email pops up. So that's kind of like Nostr. There's some for Apple and there's some for Android and there's some for desktop. And you explore which one you want. So all the information goes through a bunch of different people's computers and comes to you, and your program that you use to access translates it, and you can see it like you're on Facebook.
What happens if the people who built my program decide they hate me and just shut it down for anybody who's like me?
Use a different one. Right. And well, and that's the thing. There's so many different options, and everybody's going to like a different setup. Everybody's going to like different options. And so you kind of try them out. I've tried a bunch out, and I keep going back to the original one. I think just because I got lucky and used it first.
Amethyst.
It's fantastic. But the greatest part about this is it's all new. Not new enough, and small enough that their help is there. Your help to understand things. The people that are creating these apps, these clients, they're not in ivory towers. They're not unreachable. You want a feature in the client you're using, message him. Message the guy that's building it. There's a thing on there right now. So Bitcoin is a big part of Nostr. It's a value for value kind of place. Yeah. And so there's a thing called Zaptertizing, where people can send a message to you, but they send you money. So you get your spam messages. Now it comes with a little Bitcoin. So I'm okay reading spam if my wallet's filling up. But I was thinking about using it for something, and I asked the guy for a feature. He literally wrote me back in 10 minutes. He's like, so how do you want that to work? And I explained it to him. I went to work days where I have no cell service. When I came home the next night and checked my messages, it was 4 hours he had added that feature to his service because a customer asked.
Right. Basically, I need to talk to you about that going into the Christmas coffee rush. I'm pretty sure.
Right? Right? It's a feature that you'll absolutely love that I requested. So
yes.
But yeah, it's a different world though. Like I said, you got to be ready for what you're getting into.
Here's what you're getting into that's different from just a user, because I'm not as deep into the tech side as Brian. The reason I'm using it is I talked to Brian and then I spent some time doing the things and then it worked. That was it. And I knew in advance that I am given some keys at the very beginning, that if I lose those keys, I'm going to be super sad. So then I actually took the time to save those keys. And then I lost them for a couple months, but I saved them and I found them and everything's fine. But so there's some setup stuff that you do go over in your video. So if you watch his 5-minute video, and then you zap him some sats because you appreciate him putting the work in, because that's how this world works, you can get set up, and the important pieces that you don't want to lose, he'll talk about. But the difference between how the information flows on Nostr and how it flows on the social media that people are used to, like Facebook and whatever, is if you go on there and don't follow anybody, you will see nothing. You won't be served. There's some suggestions for you to get you started. So you have to commit to getting started and going out and following things.
Well, that's that's Primal's changing that. The one that I use in the video, I dropped the link to that video in the private chat, Nicole.
Cool.
If anybody wanted it.
Well, because you can't actually.
I don't think I can post it.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll post it out. It's fine.
Primal, which I use in that video, is the easy button right now. If you're just trying to use it, check it out, see if it's something that you like, Primal's really nice because it's easy, super fast and easy. Long term, is that how I would recommend setting things up? Or if you want to take the time to set it up the way I think is the proper way, Primal isn't really the way I would suggest long, like involved setup for long-term use. But to check it out, and they're really catering to the new user because they're doing top zapped, they're doing really Twitter-esque things. And the feed right now, everything Nostr right now is kind of a mirror of Twitter, X, or whatever they call it. It's kind of that micro-blogging style of information. That's just what works there. But things are developing all the time that hook to Nostr, like music streaming services and podcast services and live streaming, and all these things are developing real time. But Primal's really focusing at that new user, so you can come in and you can search a hashtag and see everything and decide who you want to follow without just gumming up your feed. So it is the new user onboarding way for sure.
Yeah, I've got Primal on this phone right now, and I have Amethyst on a different one, and I like Amethyst better, and I don't know if it's because I just started by using it, but
he's really in tune with user interface. Victor,
it's really great.
The developer.
It's great for a normal person like me who's tech interested. I'm not tech-y anymore.
Right. You know enough to get through it, and then once you're
I'm a tech groupie.
Tech curious.
Yeah, tech curious. The other thing about it that's the opposite of social media is Nostr is an opt-in culture, not an opt-out culture. So on these other social platforms like YouTube and whatnot, if you don't want advertisements, you pay a fee and then you don't get advertisements. Or on Facebook, you can't do that, but you can say, I don't want to see these kind of advertisements. And then it serves you, in theory, different ones. Or you report things so you don't have to see it. In Nostr, I think the way advertising, because I've just heard you talk about that for the first time today, it sounds like what I have to do is I've agreed I'm willing to read things that people pay for me to read in exchange
Well, no,
for
they
a little
actually
zap.
the Zappertising is basically a comment on your post, or
Yeah.
they just send a zap to your wallet, so it shows up in your notification. Zap is a sending Satoshis or super small, minute pieces of Bitcoin. They actually just send you it, and attached to the message that says so and so sent you 21 sats is their ad.
Yeah.
So you're not really you're consenting to receive money, and they just attached a note to it.
Yeah, and you can either read that note or not read that note.
You can not hook a wallet up, and then they can't send you money.
Yeah.
But I like money.
Yeah. I like money too. We should hang out.
Great idea, Sean. Great idea.
So
the other part of that is,
I
think some of the I think what will happen over time with clients is they will build in some sort of advertising to the specific app. So like, if I'm not saying Primal is doing this, but I'm going to use their name because we've talked about them. So Primal decides we need to get some Satoshis for through advertising, and we have this suggested content feed. So to get in our suggested content, you can now pay us X amount of money or Satoshis to do that. I feel like at some point somebody's going to figure out how to do that. And if people want to use that app, they'll have to see the things that the app wants them to see. And if you don't like that, you're going to go to a different app like Amethyst, who's not going to do that in theory. Well, again, right neither one of these are actually going there, but yeah.
Right at the moment, there's free and there's paid relays. So relays are basically how you get the information out. So when you post it, you have a list of relays that you subscribe to, that you send your notes. So Nostr is, I mean, from the basics, Nostr is notes and other things through relays is the acronym. So when you send your note, your tweet, your post, whatever, on Nostr, their notes, when you send it, it goes to the specific list of relays that you've signed up to send it to. When you load your feed, it's pulling from the relays that you sign up that you want it to pull from. So there's different ones that are specific to different topics. That gets a little deeper into once you start using it, because it's kind of funky to set up. But you can narrow down by topic with some different relays. But a lot of them are going to a annual paid. And they'll add in specific things like spam control, filtering, different keyword searches, things like that. But you choose which one you want to use. Like, it's not like this is your choice. You either pay or you don't. There's 100 different relays to sign up for. Some are better than others. Some work better than others. Some are paid. Some are free. It's all open choice, and you decide what you want to use.
Yeah. So the control is in your hands. And what that means is you have to be willing to spend the time learning how to use your control in a way that makes it work for you. But because of that, the government can't just shut it down. It's kind of like when the trucker protest happened in Canada, and the government tried to shut down wallets that were non-custodial and got letters from those companies saying we can't, go learn how it works, basically. That was a moment that really highlighted how getting off the centralized bank with some of your funds and using a decentralized system where you hold the control keeps, short of a dude with a pipe wrench, like, it keeps control in your hands.
The flip side of that coin is, with Nostr and the decentralization and it going out to all these different relays, is there's no delete button. It's like sending it out and like everything on the internet is forever. That's because it gets shared to this there and copied and all this. Well, when it goes to multiple relays, there's no pulling it back. Once it disseminates, it's gone. There are some clients that are adding an edit button, but they're still trying to figure out how to make it all work. Because once it hits different relays, it's decentralized. That's the whole thing. It's like why Bitcoin works. Because once it's there, it's there. There's no changing it. So be careful what you post, and don't worry about your misspellings. Some of the funniest things I see over and over and over are rehashes of people's autocorrects when they're doing hashtagging a post. They do an autocorrect and it comes, we've all done it in a text message. Now do it for the world to see, and now we just laugh about it because that's what you do.
Right. It's funny. To me, the autocorrect thing on these has gotten so much worse in the last year. It changes perfectly reasonable words, has no idea of the context of grammar. So I want to type the word were, W-E-R-E, and it will inevitably add an apostrophe, we are, right. Even though very clearly contextually in the frickin' sentence, I need a past tense verb there.
Yeah. Mine automatically doesn't change it to duck anymore, so that's good.
Yeah. Mine went the other way and changed the word duck more than one time.
The one that always gets me is hell yeah, because I say hell yeah a lot, and it put a comma in between, and I'm like, no, that is not what I'm trying to say.
Like heel, yeah.
Or like, no, hell, yeah. Like, no, that is not what I'm saying. Like, why don't you understand me, computer? I was going to ask you something, Brian. So, like you said, this is an opt-in versus an opt-out infrastructure. So, I think one of the things that you might want to be, I don't know if concerned is the right word, but just aware of is the fact that you can end up in this like echo chamber of insanity if you're not opting in, if you're not actively searching. So, TikTok and Facebook and X, they're going to throw a bunch of stuff at you to figure out what you like, which means you get exposed to a lot of different things. Whereas it sounds like with Nostr, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, you can end up being like, oh, I like that, and I like that, and I like that. And then every time you get on, you're just getting that, So,
absolutely. Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. So hashtags are big. So you search hashtags. That's kind of how you find people, find posts, find. So, I mean, if you search the hashtag flat earth and all you follow is people that say hashtag flat earth, you're going to have your confirmation right there.
Right. Yeah. You're going to be right about your theory.
Right.
Because all of the evidence points that way.
Right. So, I mean, you gotta search hashtag globe theory too, and be open. And I think it really helps people too become open, because it forces you to either be in an echo chamber like you're saying, or do the responsible thing and be open to other people's opinions.
Yeah. Well, I always remember Alex Jones when he was like really going off the deep end. And I remember he went on, I think it was Joe Rogan's podcast, and he admitted, he said, the problem was I was in this crazy echo chamber, and the craziest stuff was the stuff that I was getting. And he said, and because I've seen and uncovered so much crazy stuff, I believed it, but that was all I was getting. I was never getting the other side. And he's like, I actually convinced myself of some of this stuff that now in hindsight was obviously just crazy stuff. But again, I was in this echo chamber of conspiracy theory, and like the regular conspiracy theories were too mainstream for me. So I just ignored those, And so anytime like you said, you're in this opt-in thing, that's just something to be aware of, is you don't want to accidentally find yourself creating a problem without realizing that you're creating a problem.
Right. And I mean, there is a ton of Bitcoin talk there. There's a ton. of Bitcoin talk. Like I said, it's kind of it runs on that value for value proposition. There runs through Bitcoin. So obviously these developers are crypto centric people. So there is also a lot of non-Bitcoin talk there. So when you go on there and you see people talking and you're like, I don't want to see that, search for something else, find something else.
Right.
And open up your mind a little bit too. Maybe learn something about Bitcoin. It might benefit you in the end.
It probably will. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I think
It
opens.
is red right now. It's down right now. It's red.
Oh no, I've wasted my whole life because Bitcoin is down 5% today or whatever.
No, 1.69%.
Oh, okay. I don't actually pay attention to the price that closely.
It
does not serve me to do that.
I just watch red or green.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's you have to be prepared to try something new. This isn't like somebody using Facebook and hey, you should try out TikTok. It's a whole different world.
Facebook sucked and was hard to use when it first launched too.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and it would go down sometimes. You know, like it had. So not that Nostr sucks because it doesn't suck, but
and it can't go down.
Yeah, it just has weird things you have to learn, and they change some as it develops. And sometimes you'll see people talking about stuff you don't understand at all that has to do with coding things to be better on Nostr, and you're like, I'm just going to ignore that one,
Right.
or I'm going to try to figure out what that means, or I'm going to ask what that means, and sometimes people will tell you.
It's a very friendly and they want to help people. Everybody there wants to see it succeed. Right. So when you get there, write your first post and put introduction. I think it's hashtag introductions is what they use. And users search that to find new people to welcome them and see if they have any questions. There's also a very popular Ask Nostr, hashtag Ask Nostr, all one word. You write that and you ask your question. And there's people that just monitor that hashtag to help new people or help. I mean, I use it. It's not, I've been using it for a year and a half. I still ask questions that method. So there's a lot of little nuances like that. So when you get into that introductions and you ask a question, you'll get a flood of information and you'll get a ton of people that want to help you.
Right.
And that is part of what's great about that network is having that flood of people help you. That's what's needed at the beginning. It kind of, you remember Float, right? Float was trying to do this, and it became a really cool ecosystem that reached a lot of more freedom-oriented people. With Nostr, we are opening a door now where the discussions we should be having is how to set yourself up to expose yourself to a variety of opinions and how that works on Nostr so that you don't end up in the echo chamber unless you really want to be there. And it also opens up discussions on how to verify facts, which is something we forgot to teach our kids for the last 20 years.
You mentioned Float, and I get that question. Well, you got me to sign up for Float because that was going to be the censorship resistant platform. You got me to sign up. I put my time into there and then it disappeared. Why should I trust you now? Go back to that protocol thing we talked about at earlier. It's not a platform. They can't make it disappear. Nobody can make it disappear. There's no CEO of Nostr that can run away with all the fundraising. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. There's no guy to pull the rug. There's nothing to turn off. Your client might disappear, but Gmail might disappear. That doesn't mean you can't use email anymore.
Right.
So that's the difference with Nostr versus, say, a Float or a Rumble or a whatever Trump decides to spin up after the fact, or that's the difference.
And it's a big difference.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah. It's a game changer. Okay, well, we're coming up on an hour. Is there anything else we should cover?
It could.
I have one thing that I just thought of. I have not had a Nostr session at any event yet because nobody owns Noster. So now you have to try to find somebody to talk about Noster and make it relevant to the audience. How do we get that done? Because it's time to get, like, I would love to have a webinar with you in like December, Brian, where you just walk people through. But beyond that, let's say at Self-Reliance Festival next year, we want to have this decentralized social network session to get the people who are afraid of it willing to try. Now, I'm not expecting to solve the problem of not willing to have something to use to interface with it. Like, how do we get a session that is truly valuable because there's no CEO to have come in and speak?
Mm-hmm.
Users that have user experience, people that are happy with using it, people that have been frustrated using it, people that got their mind changed by using it. Have the users come, because that's what it's made of. Have possibly a client developer talk about his client, why it works. They all are huge fans of each other. So it's not going to be Apple showing up and bashing Microsoft. It's going to be Victor from Amethyst showing up and showing the benefits of his client, but also pumping up the rest of Noster and saying, if you don't like mine, go use someone else's. That's why we all do this.
That makes sense. Okay, so we're coming up on an hour. Let's go once around the horn. Bring up anything else you want to. And don't forget to tell us how to connect with you so that everybody can follow each other's channels and whatnot. Let's start with you, Sean.
All right, I'm Sean with hackmyhomestead.com. You can find me at Hack My Homestead on all of the things. I imagine within the next week, I will have some sort of link to how to help with the East Tennessee recovery efforts. Not that I'm against Western North Carolina, but that's where I'll be, is Eastern Tennessee, just because the folks that I'm hooking up with, that's where they're operating. And, my whole thing is I want you to be more self-sufficient. And I come to that through, I'm not, the canning guru like Nicole is. I am how can you take on more responsibility for your utilities, like water, like gray water and black water management, like electricity. And so if you're interested in any of that stuff, feel free to follow me. From a social standpoint, I mainly do TikTok just because that's the one that's easy for me. And I know a lot of people don't like to use that. I think after today's conversation, I'm going to figure out how to get more content up on Noster and start driving things there more often.
Okay, Brian, why don't you go next?
And
if you could put your NPub in private chat, I'll put it over on Noster.
Oh yeah. I've really come to the conclusion that I'm pretty much like ADHD in a bottle as far as what I got going on. I do a morning show every Monday through Friday on YouTube and Noster, and I guess Twitch. I got one guy that watches on Twitch, so I keep it around there for him because he likes the private chat, I guess. That's what he says. But YouTube is kind of the main outlet. The Lots Project on YouTube, LOTS, not Lost, Lots.
What does that stand for, Brian?
Living outside the system is what it originally stood for, and it's kind of multiplexed into a bunch of different stuff as the 3 years plus has been going on. But the morning show is basically I'm trying to throw it back to an old school 90s morning show, because that's what I grew up listening to, like the Howard Stern, the Opie and Anthony, that type of thing. So that's an hour every Monday through Friday morning live on YouTube. You could also get it in audio form on the podcast feed. I got like 800 episodes, I guess. But I also do Amazon influencer videos. I put those on my YouTube. I'm building out in conjunction with Toolman Tim. You're familiar in this audience probably with him. Building out Delinquent's Gully, an off-grid property where we're doing a bunch of cool stuff, and we're going to start documenting that. Man, all sorts of every direction. So you can find me at thelotsproject.com. It has all my socials across the top and all sorts of contact information. Thelotsproject.com. It's pretty easy.
Awesome. Well, I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, and I put together the Self-Reliance Festival every year, which we just got finished with, which, David, the reason my voice sounds gravelly is I talked too much all weekend. That's why. So we just got done with that event. Brian was instrumental in helping us have some live streams from the event and doing the Content Creators Corner. Sean is our sponsor manager, and he did presentations on off-grid water. And he also showed his prepper PC. And the cool thing that's different about our festival over other festivals is it's truly attendee generated. It, like, the things that happen there happen because somebody says, hey, we had a baptism on Saturday because people wanted one, and Bear was there. And so they had baptisms. And we had a barter blanket because James, Survival Punk, decided to oversee a barter blanket. So it's really tapped into a spirit that I love, and that you can find out more about that at Self-Reliance Festival. And of course, since it's Tuesday Coffee, don't forget, get your fresh roasted coffee to your cup, hollowroast.com. That's my actual brand that we run. And we'll be back next week with another show. Thanks for joining in.